Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Every Degree Matters. I'm your host Saffran Minhar. Today we're going to talk about another great exciting topics that has been developing in the last week. First of all, the Epstein Files has been released. It's been ordered to be released by the Senate and the Congress. They both voted for it, and President Trump is threatening to have a military operation in Venezuela. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, MBS, he's in the United States. They had a nice week. And then he also announced from $6 billion to $1 trillion of investment. We also have the redistricting battle that's going on in Texas. California last on November 5th voted yes, so they will be able to redistrict that, giving the approval. And then also IMF is warning that United States economy is citing some weaknesses in domestic demands, and President Trump cuts tariff for essential goods. So let's dive into the topics.
And you wanna write it down, would it kill you just in this thing? And you wanna spell it out with the words out of position. Hold on till you see them when you're done. Straight out for your place. You won't see real.
Hello everyone, welcome back. And today let's start with the first topic, which is the Epstein Files. So finally, the Epstein Files have been voted by the Senate and the Congress to release. And I don't know how much of this is going to come out, but some names have come out, and President Trump has to sign the bill. I don't know if he has signed it or not. When then it will go into the law. And they also added this clause that what things that they can legally present it to the public, so you don't know what you're going to get. If there is a topic, as I mentioned last time, if there's something that's an ongoing investigation, they won't be able to release those documents. So I don't know, it's how much is going to be deducted heavily, and then how much will all that be released. So it's all big question mark, but end of the day, I think it's a big win for a lot of people, the victims, the big mega base that President Trump and JD Vance ran on. So a lot of things have come together, so which is a good sign. I think finally President Trump heard the voice of the mega movement that elected him. That was the biggest instrumental. And he also he didn't it's not part of the campaign promise, but most of his campaign administration staff ran on this, leading up to their own confirmation to the administration. So it's going to be a big success and big momentarily a good thing for President Trump, because in the last couple of weeks everything has been going ups and down with the shutdown and the reopen. That also leads to that the vote was amazing, 427 for one. For the first time, all the House and the House Republicans and the Democrats joined together to vote for something that they wanted to release on, so which is amazing. And well, let's see. In my own take would be, I don't think everything is going to be released. I think something will be released, but this whole scandal will still go on. I hope. I wanted me to be wrong, but I don't know what's going to happen and how things are going to evolve from here, and how people are going to look. Is the government protecting the pedophiles? Is government with higher people who are in the power still own the lot of things in this country, or do you need a lot of money? I mean, it is true to some extent. So let's all see, this whole fight that's been going on back and forth between the Republicans and then also the Democrats. They are also fighting each other whether to release it or not. And then also the mega is divided. So it's a pretty big, interesting way of how things are evolving, particularly within the base, the mega base, and kind of is split between two groups. But I hope they all come together, because that's the most important thing as Americans to do, to unite. I mean, if you are a Democrat or Republican or whatever you are, whatever the whatever the party you are from, but you just make sure that you represent America and you do what is interesting to the people of America. So then also The other thing, the other topic we want to talk about is that President Trump is threatening to to do, sorry, military action against Venezuela because of the narcotic problems that's been happening, because the tensions have risen and the discussion intensified around the U.S. Under the Trump's director to take military step against the Venezuela officials, framing the situation as addressing security concerns, while some of the critics also are warning it's unnecessary escalation or sparking a debate to destabilize the region. And again, we don't want to destabilize the region. Look at what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's because of all this. Because of that, there's been huge impact in immigration, and you don't want to end up another immigration madness that's coming from South America or Central America, I would precisely put. At the same time, what do you call the defense secretary, or this defense secretary of war, uh, Pete Hegseth, has launched Operation Southern Sphere, calling it a mission to remove the narco terrorist from our hemisphere. This also concerns over that what it could happen in geopolitical in that particular region, which is very scary. And also, I mean, a lot of fentanyl is coming through, a lot of from the border. A lot of people are dying. It's so sad, you know. I mean, cocaine is another one thing, and it's, you know, the fentanyl is a big crisis, and it's just that it's so sad. 40,000 people are dying, I guess, in a year because of those addiction. I mean, overdose of fentanyl, which is really bad. If you look at, I mean, those are American people. You know, I mean, first, yes, drugs are not important. Drugs are always harmful, but then again, you know, you go and take, you know, it's all fentanyl mixed in, and it's just, you know, just a father, a daughter, a mother, you never know, a son. It's just really burns my gut, like, you know, to see a lot of innocent people, whether knowing or unknowingly, take all these substances and being addictive, and then also get overdosed and then also die because there is a mix of fentanyl in it. So which is really, really sad, and I hope they can bring a stop to this. And the other thing I also see that also connects to President Trump having this MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, who is here, and they are also watching to get connected with the United States, and they also want. I think they also want an unstabilized Venezuela, because the oil prices are going down. And you might have seen the oil prices, and the need of oil is going to go, has drastically will decrease in the next 10 to 20 years. So you got to look at a country like Saudi Arabia. They are more determined on oil, but now the Venezuelans are supplying oil to China at a very lower cost. So they are like, they wanted to, maybe they want to take that market. Saudi Arabia wants to take that market. Maybe that's something that, you know, if there is an destabilized country, I don't think China will willing to buy oils from them. So that's a big question mark. Why is it happening? What are the geopolitics behind it? And remember, you know, oil is not going to stay here for long. You know, we always have alternative energy source. People are really developing good new things. Solar is coming up. Nuclear reactors are coming up, and then also other source of energy where you can store. And then also, if Elon builds the giga factory that can store battery, and you know how we could go from there, which will be amazing. That's fantastic things. And there needs to be also, there will be a huge energy need as well once this AI and all these things, data centers pop up in all those places, and they need higher capacity of electricity to run all those things, which is a really interesting part that leads it to where Saudi Arabia could be more concerned that they might lose the dominance of oil, and the economy might crash, or not crash. I mean, the first time they have taken loan, I think they are also overspending with the new Riyadh season. If you have looked at it, how to bring in new tourism, because they are declining. They know in the future they will decline in oil, and they want to make sure the economy is not fully based on oil. They also can transition to some other things like sports events. They have UFC fights. They want to have Formula Ones. They bought the PGA, the golf, one of the golf tournament. So which is an interesting part to understand and see where the dynamics is working, particularly if you want to see how they wanted to move from, are they willing to take the transition, and how the economy is going to handle. So they want President Trump especially America, to be on board so they can do what they wanted to do, particularly and raise the money and raise awareness for a little bit longer time. Maybe that's one of the reasons President Trump is threatening to have military actions against the narcotics people in Venezuela, which I mean, we don't want another invasion, or entering to another country and destabilizing it. So that's another thing that it's very interesting and crazy to think about. The other topic that I wanted to lead is that the economy wise, the IMF is warning that due to the shutdown, and the economy of the US might be weakening because there's been slow job growth, there's been a risk of, due to uncertainty of a lot of things happening, because President Trump is going with the tariff back and forth. I really think the tariff is going to work, but I think there will be a big dip on the economy before it goes up. Maybe I think we might right now seeing that decline. I feel like in probably in the beginning of April, or end of March, we might see a upwards trending. If you also look at the Bitcoin right now, it's at 93,000 or 94,000 as of we speak. And then also the S&P 500 is also at a not a big growth, but it is on a stabilized process. So I feel like that could also lead into a lot of panic to a lot of people. What I would always say, don't buy unnecessary things that you don't need. If you have extra money, that's a different story. Save up for the next 6 months. You don't know what's going to happen. The economy might not crash. I mean, like Michael Burry is like trying to bet against Nvidia. I mean, Nvidia is always I always thought it would be a big bubble. So anyway, so then they also the bank of the BNP Paribas, that's a Paribas bank, has done economic research and said that the Q4 of the Q4 economic GDP economic growth of the US will be 0.8% low than last year. So that's pretty 0.8% low from the GDP of annual GDP of Q4, which is really, just imagine if your government is shut down for 43 days for nothing, and these people have no idea what are they doing. They also say that because this could have happened, the inflation is going to go up. They also feel like they are also saying that I could also feel like it could be some data flog, because there was no government data collected in the last 43 days. I mean, everything shut down. So the economists are also warning that there are missing data that could also lead to this whole inflationary thing. But as of today, the market saw some gains today in tech stocks, some rebounds. But main things, I mean, still the aftermath of the shutdown is still going on. I think in a couple of weeks, and remember, it's also holiday week, right? This week and next week, and then moving from in September, in December, nobody works literally in the last 2 weeks. It's Christmas, everything is happening. But the other good thing is that President Trump finally realized that he needs to step up and cuts the tariff. So he's removing tariffs on certain goods like ground beef, coffee, tropical foods, and in response, because the prices are going up, and imagine you having Thanksgiving dinner, you should be able to afford it. That's the most concerning thing I have. As in America, they celebrate Thanksgiving next week, which is the most important thing in terms of trade. And they also, I think, President Trump also got pressurized, because the low income Americans are under significant pressure, according to the new report by Allianz Alien Reason, right? Because the reasoning is that the rising costs are constraining their spending, and people are spending a lot of money, but they're making less money. That's the whole thing. This is what I don't like about, like, I love a lot of parts of capitalism, but also this is something that I don't like. When the cost of living goes up, the minimum wage has to go up. That has to go up. You can't just pretend people are going to survive with certain minimum wage that was set on 20 years ago. Then this cost of living is like, that's what I told you. $1 in 2000 is only worth 60 cents today. So that's like 40% gone, right? If you have $10,000 on 2000 in 2000, with that 10,000 right now, you can only buy 60% of goods with what you could be able to buy If you had the same 10,000 in 2000, the year 2000, you can buy what you can buy. You can only buy right now is 60% of that goods for $10,000. So the DOJ is ramping up to enforce tariff against evasion and transshipment scheme. The U.S. Custom is also using AI. So another thing that's going to happen is that the transshipment, people are finding there's real problem in those shipments that's coming in through contacts in what's this article? Let's read this. It says. In November 2000, DOJ FSA against transshipment-related tariff invasion implement AI tools. The United States and China agreed to de-escalate the measure impacting the IP. So, as you know, there is an ongoing discussion with with China and the US to renegotiate their tariffs. Hopefully, there's still the discussions are going on. If this all ends up in a good term, I feel like it could be a good deal for both countries. There is no, I always tell, there is no China without America. There is no America without China. They are the huge major partners together. And you have to understand they play a big role in this country, whether you like it or not. That's a whole different story. And also, the other topic that I want to connect is that this also leads into the production, right? As President Trump said that they are bringing back the industrialization, bringing back the factories, that blue collar jobs that people all lost in back that we back had it in the 70s and the 60s. That will be good when they start producing stuff here. Things are going to get cheaper. But this period, while they build, it takes time to build that factories. It takes time to put together a big construction site. It takes time to do all those things. I predict like maybe in the 2 to 3 years we will do great if all this commitment by big tech companies or big companies that have pledged comes through and gets implemented in the next 2 to 3 years, so we have a prosperous country and where we can reduce our debt, which is right now $37 trillion. If we can bring it down or at least net even and not go beyond this debt, so we stop paying, we don't have to pay $1 trillion in the interest. That's just ridiculous when you pay $1 trillion in interest for all the borrowed money. Just unbelievable. And I don't know, it's pretty scary sometimes when you think about it, but it's just ridiculous. So that's my take on it. And with that, let's look into the big news that President Trump had a great visitor. I would say Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was here. It was a big event that happened. They had multiple events, had investment forum, and there was this funny moment. Then President Trump actually protected him when they asked him about the journalist that was killed, what it was involved, and President Trump just went back and forth with it, which was amazing. He was defending him. And then also they agreed to sell F-35 jets. I remember, I don't know, I have spoken about this thing in this podcast before, that I think back in the first term of Trump, he showed like a big picture and said, you can buy this to Crown Prince, and saying it's nothing for you, nothing for this. And during this conversation, he increased his commitment for $600 billion to $1 trillion of investment, and which that also includes having F-35 jets. And then those F-35 jets are really, really highly capable of targeting. They are all worried about Iran. That's the most important thing they have to be worried about. And they also wanted to protect themselves. Plus, they also bring a lot of things that with tourism, with sports. They don't want to have a war against the country. They should be able to defend themselves. So that's something that President Trump, Salman, Crown Prince Salman said that. And then also President Trump announced that Saudi Arabia will be a major non-NATO ally. That's like a big step for Saudi Arabia and the US partnership. That's going to be huge. Maybe this could also lead to Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accord. I don't know, but that could lead into it. Well, let's see how the situation in Gaza and Israel is taken care of. And then they were really happy about it, which that means is that if finally they have agreed to it, will be a big political and defense shift. Look at, guys, Saudi Arabia will be a non-NATO ally. That's like a huge thing. The NATO allies that protects all the NATO countries. When you attack one country, all the 28 of them responds together. The the Article 5 of the NATO convention, the agreement. But what does this mean? This could mean that easier weapon transfer. There's not going to be a big process for that, and there's going to be shared defense project, which means that the United States will host in the US some of the Saudi Arabian armed forces, and then in term of that, in long-term operation, they already United States has a big base in Saudi Arabia, and there's a big opportunity, big things that are happening in Saudi Arabia. So I think this is going to be a huge step for Saudi Arabia. Like Qatar recently had agreement to open up a base in Idaho, Boise, Idaho, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And for the first time in their life, during this meeting, President Trump got to meet the GOAT, Cristiano Ronaldo, the soccer player or the football player to other parts of the world. And they were so happy to meet him. And Ronaldo is heavily tied into this Saudi Public Investment Fund. That's how he has been. He's been a big amplifier to Saudi Arabia once, and especially the soccer part of Soccer League of Saudi Arabia, where he has been playing for Al Nassr, and he has a huge contract signed in. I think he likes it over there, and he's enjoying it. Plus, he also likes it to bring a different perspective, and I really like it. When he moved in, everything about Saudi Arabia is changing. And recently, Mr. Beast opened up the Beast Land. That's amazing stuff's happening. That also ties in that I said before, how Saudi Arabia is moving towards changing its investments and the economy and the GDP based on oil towards other sectors. So they know, then they see the future that they're seeing, how the economy is changing. So they had a nice exchange, and I think Ronaldo also met him the next day, which was amazing. And they are also looking to do something for the FIFA, which is going to be hosted in the US finally, and Mexico and Canada. Most of the games will be happening in the United States, and some of them will be in Mexico and Canada. So that's like a big news that happened this week with Saudi and President Trump. And oh man, I'm so astonished how President Trump is working tirelessly to this country. I saw a post by a senator that at 9:30 p.m. he's working. That's just amazing. Whether you like him, whether you hate him or not, but whether you can hate him or do whatever you can think, but it's just so crazy to see, so amazing to see such a president that's at 80 years old giving his time and efforts to fix this country. They also make things better. And I'm not saying he's flawless. Of course, he has his problems. Every president has his problem and weaknesses. So that's what I think. With that, let's move on to the next topic. Is that COP30? So there's going to be a lot of big tensions happening in COP30. If you guys have been following the news, because the United States have not attended. There's no big delegation, or there's nobody barely attending from the for anyone from the US is attending the conference. And then also the Secretary Chris Wright, he's the Energy Secretary for the US, has said that he has condemned the COP30 summit as a harmful and misguided, defiling the global scientific consensus and concerning by the worldwide on climate change, by the governments worldwide. It's essentially a hoax. He calls it as a hoax. It says it's not an honest organization to the better human lives. I feel like this is what I feel, and we're going to talk about a lot of things. This is what I feel like. I have gone to many COPs. Sometimes not a lot of things get done. I think it also biased sometimes to certain countries. But you have to understand, look, Bill Gates went back on whatever he said for the last 20 years. That's Just ridiculous. That's just mind blowing how people are trying to realize. Yes, plastic waste is important. Yes, we are polluting the environment. Yes, what do you call? We need to take care of the ocean. Yes, we need to take care of not cutting down trees. But some of the things, like yes, like there is emission in the, like some of the things like more exaggerated. I feel like it has to be toned down, but not forget the importance of it, where everybody commits for the transition. We are not going to stop using oil. Oil is in every single product that we do. We can't just get rid of oil. It's going to be the consumption of oil, the needing of oil would go into a second layer or third layer, not be a primary product. It could be a byproduct or raw material for something that you're making. So that's how I feel it. And in COP30, countries what do you call? Countries are pushing. 80 countries have pushed to phase out coal, fossil fuel. That's just ridiculous. You can't just phase out coal without having an alternative. People are going to pay higher prices for energy. Do you think, are you going to put all the stress on these poor people? Everybody thinks that, oh, if you are born in United States, people are rich. They ain't rich. They have to make their ends meet. They all have to pay. And it's just so frustrating to see how people can sit down and say, oh, let's cut, phase out. Yes, you need to phase out, I agree, but you can't do it tomorrow. It has to be a slow process step where the cost of energy doesn't go up. If the cost of energy goes up, people can't feed themselves. Would you rather kill each other, or try to save the planet? Like, what would you do? Would you just stop killing each other and be scavengers for when you don't have money or food to feed your family, rather than or like was stupidly trying to protect the environment? First you want to save human race, environment will be fine. And this is what frustrates me, like when big countries, some 80 countries, try to get together and call to roadmap to phase out the coal. I don't know by when they're planning to, but I assume they're planning to do it by 2050. That's their whole goal, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's just stupidly. I mean, it's just that I mean, the bigger problem is that the major countries will defend it, and the smaller countries don't know how impactful will that be on people that live in those countries. People think that, like, people all think that everybody in America is rich. They aren't rich. You all have to understand that people are not rich that are born in America. No, it's just, yes, it's the leading economy in the world. Just remember, there's only the top 1% owns the world. So you can't punish the 99% in the name of phasing out coal because you want to punish the top 1%. That's just ridiculously stupid. And this is where I get crazy. And there has been a lot of funding tension for finance in COP30. I have seen there's a debate going on about climate debt. Some countries say the developed nations owe them for historical emission. Like, what are you talking about? I mean, yes, we can help them, but you all have to stop ending corruption. There's big corruption in developing countries. There's big corruption in least developing countries. If they can stop zero corruption or come to a scale of where the corruption can be negligible, like there's big corruption in politics, mainly in politics in all those countries that are demanding. Like, this is what happens. These developed countries, I come from a developing country, right? There's a huge amount of corruption in where I come from. People don't understand that. People just think, and then how would you have the right and the audacity to say for a developed nation to pay for their fair share of emission, where you have a big problem of tackling your own corruption? That's what led to a lot of countries fail. Look at Sri Lanka, a big debt crisis. We went to default our debt because of corrupt government. It's just bananas when you think about it. And then also people think that developing countries are demanding more climate financing. They argue the past pledges. Well, yes, why don't you also fix your stuff and then go and ask, stop begging for money. I just hate when people beg you for money, where you can use services, where you can develop your country. Look at Argentina. Can you fix, if Argentina can be fixed and become net positive, anyone can do it. You just need the political will. So go and elect your own president or prime minister or the government that's willing to take care of the people and not just themselves only. That's the problem we have in today's world. The other thing, as usual, they have the indigenous protest happening, and indigenous protest and rights issues in COP30 is happening. Indigenous groups have always criticized that cracking down at COP increased insecurity and limited space. So that's the other thing that I don't like. I mean, here's the thing though. What are they going to do? What impact they're going to make? I think you should just show an example. We have to protect those indigenous people. At the same time, I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to block them in this space. They need to be allowed. I mean, I like free speech. You have to be willing to hear what the other party. Where is the free speech here? Like the UN talks about a lot of things and then they start blocking people from not hearing. It's just ridiculous how the other thing, which I don't agree. And Iceland declares that glacier melting a national security threat. I don't know how much of the glaciers are going to melt, but I think if they have a green government or someone who is like, they think that, in Iceland, people think, I mean, no, scientists warn that rapid melting could disturb the Atlantic meridional overturn. What the heck is that? Meridional overturn. Overturning the circulation. Oh, which affects the weather pattern. Okay, so they think that when the ice melts in the Iceland, the current between the ocean plays a huge in terms of the climate that we live in. So that could be something really. I don't know how much of this is true. They always say ice is melting. I mean, this is Reuters. They're saying it's national security, and this is an expert of sustainable solution. Okay, this is the media. They say that Iceland has okay, the Atlantic, the AMOC brings warning waters from tropical northward towards the Arctic, and this helps to keep Europe winter mild. But as the temperature as warning the temperature speed of the thaw of Arctic ice and causes water from Greenland's ice sheet to pour into the ocean. Scientists warn the cold fresh water could disrupt the current flow, as I mentioned, which can also then potentially become the collapse of the AMOC and trigger a modern ice age with a winter temperature across northern Europe plummeting into new cold. See, that's the other thing. People always think that the temperature is going up. It can also turn into reverse and become an ice age. That's pretty scary though. People always think the ice melting will increase the sea level. I don't think so. The sea level is going to raise unless the ice melts. The ice from the land that's not connected to the ocean melts. Then the sea level will rise. The ice is that already submerged in the ocean. If that melts, I don't think the sea level will rise. That's physics with all this update. And people are talking about this in COP. Maybe this is because something happened in COP that has triggered this. Well, that's it about COP. Let's move on to the next topic, that is with US and South Korea pact. The United States and South Korea has signed a memorandum of understanding for $35 billion in a strategic investment. President Trump, where he met with Lee Jae-myung in the White House, and the part of the deal was to channel high-tech sectors including EV supply chain and energy. This trade could also make South Korean made cars and auto parts will face a reduced tariff. So because of this trade side, there will be a reduced tariff on South Korean cars. So which are Korean brands? I think Hyundai, Korean car brands. So good news for people who own Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis. The tariffs are going to go down. So the cars will be taxed 15% from 25%, which is also great. And these are the car companies. Well, main car companies are Genesis, Kia, and Hyundai, which we also have here. That's imported. That's been imported. So that's a good news. If you want to have a Kia EV9 or whatever the car you want to own, Hyundai's make good cars. So that's a good thing. When you buy an next car, make sure you go to the dealership and say, hey, you know what, guys? Yeah, I saw this 15% low, so you can't mark up the price, as they always do, price gouging for no reason. That's a great improvement and great what do you call going up in terms of the President Trump thinking really concerned about it and bringing down the cost and making a concession to China, to Korea. They're investing $350 billion in the U.S. So that's great. I mean, strategic investment. They might probably buy United States goods. That's how it works. And the other thing that's happening around the world is that there's huge immigration and displacement in countries like Sudan, especially because there has been a big threat. They're saying the imminent catastrophic threat because of the war that's happening in South Sudan, I believe, and where there's going to be the IMO, the International Organizations for Migration, is warning that there will be an imminent threat of imminent catastrophe as displacement surges in North Darfur, where the war is taking place, taking place in South, but there's been big. Let's read. So the international, so there's been a lot of humanitarian violations that's happening, including mass killings, ethnic and sexual violence in the El Fashar, North Darfur have triggered so that's been, I think it's happening in the local. There's been heavy shelling and ground assault in El Fashar, and have 90,000 people have been forced to flee the country on an unsafe route with no access to food and water or medical assistance. This is crazy. I think United States is, has to help in. I don't know. People don't like America to get involved. This is the problem with South Sudan and the North Sudan. This is crazy, and the war is also creating a big refugee crisis. This is what the problem is. Every time, it's just like it's really really hard when you have war in this country, and this war will just go bananas and then there's going to be a huge amount of refugee crisis if we don't stop it, and then all these countries will also then call that there's an immigration crisis. That's what leading to. And finally, the UN Security Council, as I told you, people don't listen to me, says that the US plan for Gaza's stabilization force was approved. That means this force will consist of the U.S. military is planning for divided Gaza with green zones secured by international and Israeli troops. So there will be international and Israeli troops within this green zone. If you look at this map that they have shared here, let me share the screen here. Let me see. Okay. Okay, so anyways guys, I'll share the screen where you can see here the how do I share the screen? Okay, let's see. Okay, I'll share it on my description. You can see, so this will be the green zone. So finally they have approved. I think the red zone is where still Hamas is still having control of, and that's a great sign. I always tell people I always tell people from Gaza and Palestine, this is the final and the last opportunity that you guys have to make this two-state solution work and get a statehood for Gaza or for Palestine, and work together with the Qataris, with the US, along with the Israelis. This is because President Trump is the only president in this modern day will be able to make this happen. People really need to understand that. Don't mess around and goof around. Stick to the plan and get things done for God's sake, so that people don't die from each side. So that's how I want this to be ended. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining Every Degree Matters. And I try to make sure that I bring in more interesting topics, and we'll also try to see if we can get other guests. But for now, we just wanted to keep this thing going. Thanks for listening, and I hope that we can make this podcast more and more exchangeable, more and more interactable in the future. With that, thanks for joining Every Degree Matters. Until then, I see you all next time.